Chapter 9, on Free Will. Since their tender age, some individuals have been instructed to fear an omnipresent and omniscient God. How hard it must feel as a child to think you are never left alone, never to live as free as your childish nature drives you. Then, suddenly, in a moment of enlightenment, the child asks the parents how he or she could make any choices, given that God already knows what one's choices would be. Upon hearing this question, they just went speechless, and then gave a crooked religious explanation, as if forced to reveal a dark secret that God knows the end of your road, yet it's up to you to take the turns. In other words, everything is foreseen, yet free will is given. To this, the child said nothing, supposedly believing them, since it was beyond him or her to contradict their words. Hearing other children repeating the same story told by their parents, the child adheres to this conviction even stronger, which encircles him or her like a wall. Yet this wall is bound to crack someday, when one happens to meet children who heard other stories at home. I guess their conversation sounds like the following one. It's not fair if he knows everything we will do in advance, since it means we can do nothing of our own. Says who? I do whatever I want all the time, without anybody knowing anything about it. Says my mom and dad, who never lie to me. My mom and dad never lie to me either, and they told me no such stories. Maybe because they don't have such an all-knowing God as we have. We need no gods whatsoever. We can just play happily, as kids should. Then, over supper, when asked about how one's day in school was, that child would explode with emotions reporting the event. Quite naturally, the parents would try to drive it home to their child these were ill-bred, bad children to be kept away from, yet the child wouldn't understand how can children be bad. However, even if these ideas are beyond one's understanding, nevertheless, probably out of filial piety, that child will only keep company to the right kids found in the proper educational institutions. It has always puzzled me why parents have to make up stories for their children about an omniscient God. I guess they adopted this concept because their parental love wasn't strong enough, so the all-seeing, caring God served them as an additional parental figure to watch over their child for them. Bear in mind, my friend, that the parents too are victims of the same education and know no other. If all are brought up exactly as their parents were, where is free will? If the only worldview we deem right is what we hear at home, how can one take a new, ingenuous look at things, considering this will be as good as accusing one's parents of concealing the truth? The scope of our free will seems to be very limited until a certain age, since until then, one undergoes an aggressive socialization process and can be nothing but what society turns one into. I find much more terrible the fact that it is always the most sublime and critical mental processes that take place early in life, as if humanity has mastered the art of mind controlling since antiquity. But how can parents bring up their beloved little ones except their own way? Why must we assume there is just one right way at all? Why should your accidental place of birth define your faith, views, and convictions, which make up the most essential parts of your mind? Isn't this a horribly dispiriting premise? It seems I have just expressed an idea most hard to accept. Even if, when already grown up, the child may decide to discard the parent's beliefs, I doubt whether he or she could muster the courage it involves, taking a new road, without being haunted by that terrible guilt for discarding the parent's truth. We who speak for the suppressed genuine souls, and who are familiar with the powers of both love and guilt, must acknowledge that it would take an uncommon hero to take a new course towards regeneration, once true feelings strive to manifest themselves. Your questions triggered many speculations. For example, suppose the Pope was born elsewhere, let's say in India. In such a case, he would have been inspired with ideas and assumed titles completely different from the ones he professes and holds now, only because he was born and raised elsewhere. I'm far from adhering to any unquestionable ideas or even strong beliefs, since my mind loves doubting. Yet those people are diametrically opposed to me, sticking to old acquaintances of the mind, indulging in them for the rest of their lives, never questioning their intellectual environment. The few who did muster the courage it takes to make their own choices are haunted by hard feelings day and night, sometimes tormented by doubts whether trading the love and safety of their old world for all that solitude was worth it at all. Yet they must never focus on the moments of hardships, but examine their lives from a long-term perspective over many years. Only then will they come to realize they lived a life that was true, experiencing their world as they really wanted to, in the bottom of their hearts. This is the greatest satisfaction a whole person could aspire to. In this dialogue, we've just peeled off another layer of our mind on our quest for the deepest and truest core of human spirit, which only few dare explore. Let me throw an even greater challenge at you, asking, how come those choose not to make their choice? What did you have in mind? How can one choose not to make a choice? Well, one may observe the response of a fellow who, when asked what he or she wishes for, says, "I don't know," not due to ignorance, but due to inability to guess whether one's desire is in accordance with that of others. Therefore, that fellow fancies that the avoidance of decision is some convenient cavern to retreat to in order to escape responsibility. However, neither what happens nor how society interprets one's conduct complies with one's expectations, since it's others who decide for him or her time and again. Thus, in the course of life, if a person prefers to obey others instead of making one's own choices, one may do it under the false religious excuse of modesty, presenting one's lifelong avoidance of making choices as a praiseworthy virtue. So, to what extent did you let others make your choices for you in the essential questions of your heart and mind? If this chapter moved something in you, I'd be deeply grateful if you left a short review on Amazon. It helps others discover the book and means more than you think. You can find the full Existential Dialogues there, along with my other books, each one written to dive deeper into the questions that haunt and shape us. Thank you for reading. Big hug heart. Link in the description.